So let's say the income that we want, we'll pick a number that's a popular number because a lot of people are trying to break into six-figure incomes and they want to get to $100,000. So if you want to get to $100,000 in income, how many homes is it that you need to sell? Well, the next part of your business plan calculator that you're going to have to work into this is what is the average sale price of a home that you would sell. Now, if you're new to real estate or you haven't sold much real estate, it's good to start with just an average number for your market or for a typical customer you expect to have for that. And look, this might be a high number, it might be a low number. What's important is that it's an accurate number. And you really don't find out whether it's accurate or not until you actually try to implement this business plan. You actually try to work through this, and then you realize, oh, well, actually my average sale price of the homes that I have sold now is actually this amount. And then you can just recalculate this plan off of your actual numbers, and then that will help you have a lot more accurate way to predict your actions and what results they produce. Because when you could dial in these numbers here and you really kind of start to see these trends of things that, okay, constantly that I usually sell a house around $300,000. That might be a $250 here, a $350 here, a $275 here, a $333 here, a $375 here, a $400 here, a $200 here. You figure out the average of all of those of that range, and maybe that's around $300,000. And you want to use an average, which finding an average, again, doing the math on this, you don't need to if you're just using this little calculator, but basically you just add everything together and divide it by however many sales it is that you have. And that's the stuff, again, we dive deeper into in the post-licensing course to really kind of, again, dial this in specifically for how you want to practice real estate. Yeah, specifically one of the things in there that you do in the post-licensing for this is you actually do two separate calculations, one for sellers and one for buyers, because maybe your business's focuses more on buyers, or maybe it focuses more on sellers, or maybe you have a split between the two of them. However it works, that's what we're teaching your post-licensing course, where you could go a lot deeper than just figuring out just across the board generically for buyers and sellers, because buyers and sellers are different. A buyer usually takes a little bit more time to work with than a seller. Let's say, though, that our average price is going to be $333,000. Now, if you don't have a number to put in for this, again, if you're new to real estate, you're just trying to kind of figure some preliminary numbers on this here. If you're in Hillsborough County, that's about an average price home. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that wherever you are, Hillsborough County or otherwise, whatever the average is for your market, you might be above that average if you're selling more luxury homes, or maybe if you're working more with investors, you're going to have a lot lower average price point. Or if you're working with first-time home buyers, there's going to be a lower price point with that as well. And that's okay. What's important in the business plan calculator is it's going to help you figure out, regardless of what this number is, of what dollar amount of home it is that you sell, regardless of what it is, you'll be able to know the numbers of what you need to do to get to this number right here. Now, you might want to focus on luxury homes, or you might want to focus on investors, but especially if you're new to real estate, or really anytime you're also trying to grow your real estate business, you're really trying to take as much business as you can get. That might be buyers, that might mean sellers, that might mean a lower price home, a higher price home, whatever is available and within arm's reach, the low-hanging fruit. And so that can make this hard to predict, again, especially when you're new. And that's why, again, using average numbers are usually a pretty safe bet. But just, again, keep an eye on this and recalculate this as you start to sell homes. Maybe your first home you sell is $250,000. Well, do the math on this. Okay, if you sell $250,000 homes, how many homes you need to sell to get $100,000 in commission? Now, the other side of this here is, what is your commission rate? Because these two pieces of information alone is not enough for you to figure out how many homes that you need to sell. Now, if the commission was always the same, if there was a standard rate of commission, then yeah, this would be all that you would need. But commission is a negotiated amount. It's something you negotiate with your clients. Now, if you look in the MLS and see what's out there, you might find 3%, 2.5%, 2%, 4%. a bunch of numbers around that range, and depending on where your market is, it might be more one direction or the other. But this also is another thing that relates more to you as well. As you become more skilled, you could command a higher commission rate. Now, look, if you're brand new to real estate and you don't really have much to show to try to convince somebody to choose you to help them buy or sell their home, what a lot of new agents do, especially when they can't speak to the value they provide, is charge a lower commission rate. Negotiate a lower commission rate with your clients. And that's a way to win business over other agents, because there are agents out there, as you become more experienced really, you'll be able to charge a higher commission rate just because you have that experience, you have more knowledge, and you really, what's the important part here is you have confidence that you are a professional that can get the job done and that you are worth the amount it is that you're negotiating for. But when you're new, it's hard to have that confidence. And a way to get business still, even if you don't have that confidence, is there are a lot of clients out there that will be blinded by price, that they will choose somebody based on price alone. And that's what happens a lot of times. It's not often the best decision to make, but it does happen a lot. So work that into your plan, whatever your commission rate it is that you're going to charge. Now, a commission rate that is pretty typical for one transaction side, at least in the Tampa market, I see this a lot, is about 3%. Again, you can negotiate higher, you can negotiate lower. There's no standard rate or anything like that. So this is a variable as well, another thing that is going to depend on your business here. But let's say that you had this $333,000 home. So you had a $330,000 home at a 3% commission rate. You do the math on that, and that's a $10,000 gross commission income. Gross commission income means your commission before any brokerage fees or splits and whatever expenses you might have in actually selling the property. Let's say that after your expenses and brokerage split and things like that, maybe you end up, if you're on a 70-30 split, maybe you're out of that $10,000, you're keeping $7,000, or you're keeping $6,000, or you're keeping $8,000 or $9,000, or it depends. It depends on how you run your business, what agreement you have with your brokerage for the fees and commission splits for using their technology services, their name, and so on and so forth. And then also whatever expenses you might have. You know, if you're going to appointments, putting gas in your car, it might not sound like a big expense, but it definitely does add up over time. And that's a drop in the bucket compared to $10,000. But little expenses that you have here and there, associations of realtors, MLS dues, different advertising expenses you might have to try to grow your business, whatever money you might be spending on training yourself and growing and developing. So you'll have some expenses out of this here. And let's say that out of every sale, and again, this is hard to dial in when you're new and you haven't sold anything yet, and you maybe don't have any agreements with brokers of commission splits or anything like that. But let's say that out of that $10,000, you end up with $6,000. So $4,000 of that goes towards your various expenses and so on and so forth. Now, could you walk away with more money? Absolutely. Maybe you're at a 100% brokerage where there's just a small fee, because there's maybe some other way that brokerage is making money. There's maybe some monthly fee they charge you for their services, or some sort of pay-per-use or anything like that. There's a lot of different brokerages out there with a lot of different structures and a lot of different environments with a lot of different value propositions, some offering a little and some offering a lot. And usually the song goes that the more it is that you're getting, the more it ends up costing. So that's, again, another variable in all this that depends on your business, how you're structuring your business, and how you're running your business. And you'll have some sort of expenses here, but I think this is a pretty conservative estimate, that 60% of that money is what you're ultimately maybe walking away with there. Maybe less than that if you have a higher commission split, or maybe you're on a real estate team. If you join a real estate team, that's where you're usually getting a smaller percentage of the total commission, but that's because you're a small part of this larger process. So there's other people on the team that are also involved in the process and carrying clients through that and so on and so forth. So again, this is something that you're figuring out for your business. And the whole point of that is that I can't just go up here and tell you, okay, well, you got to do this, 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 and this, and you do this. No, because there is no one-size-fits-all solution in real estate. It's a very unique profession where you decide how it is that you want to structure your business and set it up to achieve the success that you desire and you want, and what that means to you and your business. Because the success that you want might be completely different than the success that somebody else is after and trying to achieve. So if ultimately at the end of the day you end up with $6,000 that you walk away with, now if we want to get to that $100,000 number, we could see what we have to do. If our average sale is $333,000 and per transaction side, and that means working with the seller or just working with the buyer, because if you work with both, you usually make double. It'd be, if it was 3% per side, you would make 6% if you represent the buyer and the seller. Now, usually most homes end up getting sold through the MLS, what's known as the multiple listing service. It's the cooperative service amongst brokers that we agree to cooperate and share commission when we help each other sell our properties. So one agent lists it in the MLS and another one finds the buyer, and they end up splitting the commission. And that's where, you could go in the MLS and see the commission it is that's already pre-negotiated for you if you bring a buyer to that property. And if it's your listing, well, whatever it is that you were going to pay another brokerage, you get to keep yourself. So that would end up being double if, again, you represent both the buyer and the seller. You've got to usually do a little bit of extra marketing and really be a go-getter to get the buyer and the seller in a transaction, but it happens more often than you think, especially when you put intentional effort behind doing that. But let's say, again, you're just working with one side only, seller or buyer. So that ends up getting you $10,000. Then after commission splits, fees, and expenses and things like that you're having to run your business, let's say you come down to $6,000. So how many times do you need to do this to get this? So that's what we're going to do the math with next. Now again, if you're using that business plan calculator, that's going to do all this math and all this calculation for you, where it's going to go through step by step and you just go in and change out the numbers. It's got some default numbers in there, but it's completely customizable where you could change through all this, and it really goes into detail, not just into this, but really breaking this all the way down to how many leads it is that you want to generate. And then that way you could start planning out how you want to get these leads. Are you going to hold open houses? Are you going to go knock on doors? Are you going to go make phone calls? Are you going to do community events? Are you going to go buy Zillow leads? Are you going to send out letters to your friends and family, letting them know that you're now a real estate professional and you've undergone all this training to be the best possible realtor for their real estate needs, or whatever it is that you come up with in that little sphere of influence letter? But that's what's so great about that business plan calculator. It takes all the hard work of actually doing the numbers and the math out of it, which, look, I'm big on actually knowing how to figure this out and understand this, but at first start out just with this little business plan calculator, because this is a lot to take in at first. And if you're just trying to do the math on your own, you run the risk of doing the math wrong, and now all of a sudden all your numbers are wrong. So use that form first and play with that, and then you can get in there into dialing in the numbers yourself. But let's say, again, you want to make $100,000, and each sale ends up putting in your pocket $6,000. So out of that $100,000, how many times do we need to get $6,000 commissions in our pocket? Again, after all expenses, money we're walking away with, about 17 times. 16 and a half or so, but we're going to just round that up to 17. I'm going to call it sides. Not necessarily 17 sales, because if you have one sale where you represent the buyer and the seller, well, that would count for two sides. So in theory, if you did that for every transaction, which I'll be honest with you, that's probably not realistic, but not impossible. But if you did do that for every transaction, well, for 9 houses, you would basically need to sell. 9 houses, if you represent the buyer and seller on both sides, that would actually be 18 contract sides. That would end up being 18 times 10,000. So overall, gross, you're bringing in 180,000. But then after all your expenses and fees, advertising, whatever else it is that you might have, then you've got, actually, if you did 18 sides, you'd end up with 106,000 as opposed to just 100,000. Actually, a little bit more than that, because it was like 16 and a half. So you'd hit your goal. You'd surpass it. Now, most people will stop here at saying, okay, I just need 17 houses I need to sell. If I could sell 17 houses, if I could represent 17 buyers, I could represent 17 sellers, or maybe 9 sellers and 8 buyers, or whatever combination it ends up being. But if you stop doing the math here, you're only focusing on the mini finish lines. Because there's a lot more that goes into real estate before we actually sell a house. There's a bunch of stuff that we do with our clients that our clients have to do, processes we have to go through, if we want to get to the actual closing where we even make one $6,000 check. So don't stop doing the math there, and that's what our business plan calculator is going to help you do. It's going to help you figure out next. So let's drop all this math here. I'd love to keep this up here for you guys, but hey, you could rewind this, and we need this whiteboard space. So let's say that we need 17 contract sides. $17 sides, and if we're just doing one side, buyer or seller only, that means 17 closings, 17 home sales, which I would just project it on, again, just being buyer or seller only. And again, if you get buyer and seller in the same transaction, you just got two birds with one stone. You just knocked out two of these here. But I wouldn't plan for that. Hope that happens, try to make it happen, but don't plan for it. In worst case scenario, you just end up surpassing your goal and you make more money than you wanted to. And is that such a bad thing? Probably not. So if you want to get 17 contract sides, it's a mistake to think that you only need 17 contracts. Now you might say, well, John, you're right. I need less than 17 contracts if I could get the buyer and seller in one transaction. And you're right, because if all you need is 17 sides, you don't necessarily need 17 contracts to get to 17 sides. Again, that could be done in as little as just 9 contracts if you represent the buyer and the seller in that same contract. But here's the mistake that, again, inexperienced new agents don't realize is going to happen. Not all the contracts close. Not every contract you have is going to result in a closing, in a sale. Now, how many of those contracts are going to fall through? It's hard to say, but I will say this. You're most likely to have deals fall through when you're just starting out in real estate. Now, you could go sit in a classroom and training and whatnot and listen to an instructor until they're blue in the face trying to teach you everything there is to know and all the unexpected surprises you could possibly encounter in real estate. But here's the problem. That class would never end because there's always new surprises and unexpected things that are going to happen down the road. So you can never plan for everything. So don't try to plan for everything. And look, this is a real estate instructor telling you that. From Tampa School of Real Estate, the guy asked the instructor, telling you that, look, you don't want to just train nonstop until you can't train anymore. Look, training is important, but it's like going to the gym. You're not going to just sit in the gym all day for 24 hours straight and then you're good for the rest of your life. It's something you have to do in small doses on a regular basis to build yourself stronger and better. But what that means is there are going to be times when you're weak, especially when you're first starting out at this, and you're going to make mistakes. There's going to be problems, and it might not be your fault. It might be something on your client's side, or it might be the transaction. It might be the other side. Maybe you're representing the buyer, and the seller ends up just being super difficult and causing the transaction to fall apart. Some of these things you can't escape, but you can plan for them. You can expect these things, and worst case scenario, those things don't happen, and you just end up selling more properties. But to be conservative, especially if you're a new agent, now if you're an experienced agent, maybe you want to go with a higher number than this, but let's say that only 50% of your contracts are going to actually close. So how many contracts do you need to have? How many deals, I should call them, because again, we could have 2 deals in one contract, I should say, well, 2 sides in one deal. I don't know. We're just making up the words as we go here, basically, for this, because there's no official names for any of these things. The sides is an official name for it. Really, contract, that's kind of official, but really generic. But if we have only 50% of our deals actually close, now, I hope you're going to have more than 50%, but it's good to plan for this 50% because, again, worst case scenario, you just get more than this and you end up having more sales than you wanted or needed. But, again, is that such a bad thing? So, in that case, if we want to have some insurance to make sure that, okay, what if some of these deals fall through? What if half of the deals fall through? And does that happen? Yeah, deals fall through all the time. Maybe they can't qualify for financing. Maybe the inspection doesn't come back good. Is it as high as 50%? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's even higher. Especially if you're kind of rushing people into getting into a contract, you're going to have more of your contracts fall through. Maybe if they weren't 100% sold on the house, they have all those contingencies and inspection periods and so on and so forth where they're able to back out of that. So that's why you want to just plan for those things. So shoot for 34 deals instead of just the 17. Now, again, you're not done yet. How many appointments do you need for this? Well, let's assume that you maybe need at least 4 appointments to get to a deal. Maybe you need more than that. Maybe you need like 10 appointments. Maybe you need 20. Maybe you only need 2. Maybe you need 3. Let's just say 4 here. So 34 deals, 4 appointment times 4 times appointments. That means we need 136 appointments. Now, what does that come down to? Why is this number significant? Well, you could wake up today and get yourself an appointment out of thin air. Oh no, you got to have a lead for that. So we're going to talk about the leads next. So as long as you've got some sort of leads to reach out to, you could probably get yourself an appointment. But you're a lot more likely to wake up and get an appointment than you are to wake up and just miraculously have a closing. That doesn't happen. You got to have an appointment and a deal in place before you can have that closing. And you're not going to wake up and just have a deal fall in your lap. You usually got to have an appointment. You usually got to meet with them first. Even if you're maybe only meeting with them digitally. But usually some degree of an appointment that you're having with them before you get a deal. And usually that's a couple appointments. Let's say it's 4. So that would mean 136 appointments. So what does that mean now on a weekly basis? So this is where we start getting into the actionable items. We take those 136 appointments and we divide that by 52 weeks in a year, assuming we're going to work every week out of the year. Now, if you want to take 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, 4 weeks off, whatever it is, subtract those number of weeks out, do it across 50 weeks or 48 weeks or 49 weeks or whatever it is that you want out of your business here. But if we're working every week out of the year, that means we need about 2.6 appointments. Let's just round up to be on the safe side. Let's say 3 appointments a week. Now, if I were to ask you, could you make $100,000 a year in real estate? You might say, I'm not sure. Now, that's why you need to go back and watch Wednesday, because we talked about how it's so important to not just to not ask that question, but really ask the question instead of whether or not you can, but rather ask the question of how do you? How do you make $100,000 in a year? Well, you do the math we just did to figure out how much you make per transaction. Then you figure out how many sales you need to have, how many sides. But now we're getting down to the actionables of what you need to do, how many deals you need to have, then how many appointments you need to have. And so now we've got a more realistic question. Do you realistically think you could get 3 appointments in a week? Yeah, why not? That sounds pretty doable. But you might say, well, John, what if I need like 8 appointments? What if I'm just really not good at this and it takes me a lot longer? Or maybe I've just got really indecisive clients. Or maybe I just like meeting with people. Whatever the case may be, if you need double, if you need 8 appointments to get to the 1 deal, well, that's going to double this number, which is also going to double this number from 3 appointments a week to 6 appointments a week. So in that case, you would need 1 appointment a day and 1 day with no appointment. And this appointment might just be a 45-minute, hour-long appointment. Could you do that? I think so. That sounds pretty doable. But the next step you want to break this down to is the leads. So let's say in order to get to these 136, let's keep this all here with these same numbers because we're almost out of time for today. If we need 4 appointments, 136 appointments in the year, 3 appointments per week. Now, how many leads do we need to have in order to get to 3 appointments per week? Well, this is going to depend on how good these leads are. If you're buying leads off of a site like Zillow or Realtor.com, those leads are usually coming in fairly warm at least, if not hot. So you might not need many of those leads, but those leads are also expensive. Now, if you're meeting people at community events, your kids' sports games, PTA meetings, whatever the case may be, you're probably going to need a lot more leads from those sources, because in those sources, they're not people actively looking for a realtor to buy or sell real estate. Whereas if they go on a real estate website, they usually are. So this is where it depends on where the source is that you're getting these leads from, and you'd really want to do this calculation for each lead source. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but stick with us. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching State of Real Estate.
The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida Real Estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam.
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Charismo. And we're just wrapping things up here. Last piece of the puzzle is how many deals. We talked about it again. We got to the appointments, 136 appointments, and we're saying, okay, well, what if our lead source is really hot? Well, if our lead source is really hot, we might only need 3 or 4 leads a week. Maybe 5, maybe 6. But if our leads are more cold, maybe 10, maybe 20 leads. Maybe we're going out door knocking, and we're going to go knock on 100 doors, and maybe we have to knock on 100 doors to get 3 appointments. That seems like a pretty easy formula, especially if you could get past the whole knocking on door thing. Now, maybe knocking on doors isn't your thing. Maybe you want to hold open houses. Great, well, let's do the math for open houses. How many people do you need to get at your open house to get an appointment? That's the question you want to ask. And if you need 3 appointments for the week, well, if you're doing 1 open house for the week, however many people in your open house it takes to get 1 appointment, you need 3 times that if you're going to get 3 appointments. Or maybe you're going to mix in some other ways to get appointments. Maybe you're going to rely on open house to get at least 1 appointment, and you're going to knock on a few doors to get another appointment, and then maybe you've got Zillow leads on like a minimal subscription to get another lead every week or something like that. Maybe your broker provides you leads, and maybe they trickle in and maybe about 1 a week or something like that. Whatever it is that your formula is, just do the math. Just figure out what you've got to do so that way your goals aren't just a dream, but they start to become a reality because you have the instructions of you need to do this, 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 and this, and you do that, and these are your results. Now, will you get this right from the beginning? No. It's an estimate at the beginning, and you'll be surprised when you actually track this of how off you might have been. But that's the importance of actually tracking this, tracking how many sales you have and how many deals you had overall and then how many of them fell through. Because if you've got half of your deals falling through, I would say this would be something you want to examine to figure out how you make it so half of your deals don't fall through. Or maybe you're trying to figure out how to do business more efficiently. So you want to make this number smaller. Maybe you're at 8 appointments and you want to try to get it down closer to 4 appointments. Or maybe you're even higher and you want to try to get it lower. The first step before you could try to take actionable actions in your business to improve your business is at least just doing the math. So you know what's more important, which is how much business you actually need to do. Because this is stuff you go out there and try to get. You could very easily go out there and ask people for appointments and eventually find somebody that wants to have an appointment with you to buy or sell real estate. If you're just going out there, though, asking people to buy and sell real estate, and you don't have any relationship with them, well, you're not going to get any business from that. And if you haven't been meeting with them and having appointments with them, you're not going to get a closing out of that. The appointments pretty much always preclude your actual contract. So your focus should be on getting more appointments. And how do you get appointments? Well, all the different ways that you get leads. And then you're following up with those leads, calling them, texting them, emailing them to find out who wants to meet with you. What their needs are they immediate? And okay, well, great, you want to do that right away? Well, let's set up a time to chat and talk and go over this in more detail and how I could help you achieve whatever your goal is in real estate. Just like how we as a school want to help you achieve your goals through your real estate career, your job as a real estate professional is to help your clients, your buyers and sellers, achieve their goals in their real estate aspirations. So we're kind of doing the same thing here. But this is what you want to focus on. Do the math, figure out what this number needs to be for leads as well as appointments, and go out there and make it happen. And keep track of that. Keep track of how many leads you're getting and how many of them turn into appointments, because you might realize you need more leads than you thought, or maybe less leads than you thought. But keep track of it so you keep that dialed in and keep your system running and going smoothly. And again, this is how you make your real estate business predictable, so you have predictable income coming in, even though it's a commission-based business. So look, that's about all the time we've got for today. If you want to really learn more in depth about business planning, you got to take the post-licensing course. We really go in detail. This is one of the first modules in the post-licensing course is going over business planning. So that way you could really start to put together these pieces of what you want to do with your real estate business. It's so important. And if you haven't taken your real estate exam yet, you don't have your real estate license, check out our exam prep tools as well as our pre-licensing courses. We have classroom, live stream, as well as self-guided on-demand online courses. So any which way you want to get a real estate license, we could help you do that. Call us up, 813-333-2676, 813-333-2676. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way that they can. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.
The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida Real Estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam.
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business.